On day 14, we'll leave Portland and we'll drive to Vancouver, Washington, where we'll see Fort Vancouver National Historical Site. Drive back into Oregon, go to Astoria, look around there, and then go to our hotel for the night. We have to drive through downtown Portland in order to get to the bridge to go across to Washington State and see Vancouver. Along the way, we start to notice a whole lot of more of those homeless camps all over downtown. Traffic is rather busy trying to get to the bridge as many people want to cross it. Along the way, we're passed by a helicopter. And now we're able to get on the bridge crossing the Columbia River. On this side is Oregon. On the other side is Washington State. Welcome to Washington. As we get off the bridge, it's time to enter Fort Vancouver National Historic Site. It's a rather large area. We drive along Officers Row. And then we go to the Visitor Center to get an orientation of this large area. This has been a military installation for many decades, but what we're going to see is the Visitor Center and then the fort built here during colonial times that has been restored. From the Visitor Center, we can see the fort on the left and the bridge we crossed on the right. And we look at some of the displays here in the Visitor Center. This was originally built here because it was where a trail leading to the interior joined the Columbia River. And now we're heading over to the replica of the fort. The Hudson's Bay Company operated Fort Vancouver from 1825 to 1860 when it was given to the United States. This has appeared from the latter times, showing the Mission Church, the Hudson Bay Company, and the U.S. Army post that was here, both operating together until turned over to the U.S. government. Let's go explore this site. Although this is a replica, it is as accurate as archaeologically possible. We'll be looking at the wall and then going through the gate and looking mainly in this area of the fort. Let's get started. The walls are not really a defensive structure because you can't see through them, you can't fire through them, and there's no way to protect the fort from them. No, basically it was there in order to keep people from stealing the things that were inside. This fort was a major administration center and supply depot for a huge area, for all the way from Alaska to Mexico and from the Rocky Mountains to the Pacific Ocean. Now it's time to go exploring around the inside as we look at the various structures that are here. This site is considered to be the premier archaeological site in the Pacific Northwest, with hundreds of thousands of artifacts being found during the excavations here. First up is the bastion, which is a tower at the very corner. This was used for defense if they really needed it, but it was never really used. Then we look at the fur store. This is where the furs were kept and bought from the Native Americans and made ready to send back to England. This was the major reason they were here. Now let's look at the Indian trade shop and dispensary. The post surgeon lived here with his family, but he did much more. He prepared and dispensed medicines, operated 2 hospitals, managed the Indian trade shop, provided provisions for the kitchen, issued weekly rations to all 200 employees, recorded weather phenomena, obtained and shipped scientific specimens back to England when needed, and manages the post library. Next, we'll look at the blacksmith shop next door. This is where they made anything metal that they needed, including the traps that would be set to catch the fur animals. Next up will be the bakery, where they made various types of baked goods, including sea biscuits and hardtack to be carried by the ships and traders. Each employee got 1.5 pounds of biscuits when potatoes were not available. Outside is a well. This is the only surviving structure that still exists inside the fort, and of course they needed outhouses. Next we'll look at the kitchen that was used to make food for all the people, especially the big house. You'll notice it has direct access to the big house from the back, but it also cooked food for other people also. The chief factor's house will be looked at next. It was where the chief factor and his assistant lived with their families. It was built to impress people. John McLaughlin lived here from 1838 until 1860. The inside was not just to serve the 2 families living here, but it's where guests would be entertained, news would be shared, policies enacted, strategies discussed, and agreements made. There were decisions made here that affected the entire northwestern area of the United States. And now it's time to leave the fort and explore the garden outside. This garden is a small representation of a huge garden that was here to provide food for the fort and other things. By its gardening potential found and told, people from the east started piling in to take advantage of growing agriculture here, and eventually leading to the collapse of the Hudson's Bay Company's influence here. Deborah wanted to look around some and take some pictures of the flowers. And now it's time to leave the fort and head on northward and then westward as we head towards Astoria. First, we'll be driving through Washington State. And now it's time to head over the Columbia River. And as we do so, we will be entering into the state of Oregon again. And we'll be there until we head into California. Pass through the small town of Clatskanie on the way to Astoria. The town of Astoria was founded in 1811 and was one of the major ports along the entire Pacific coast. As we come into the city, we pass our hotel. We're going to go look around some and then come back. Clark Gable began his acting career here in 1922. While we're here, one of the things we want to do is to explore the various sites where the Goonies was filmed in 1985. We watched the movie just before we left home. Up there is the Goonies house, and right next door is where Data lived. We're going to drive up there now, but it's a gravel driveway and it's very steep and hard to get to, and we won't be able to stay there long as we'll be blocking traffic. This is Data's house here, the gray one, and then next door is where the Goonies lived. Here are some scenes from the movie that were filmed inside this house. And as they leave, they're going back down that driveway that we just drove up. You can see how steep it is.
Next left on the Leif Erikson Drive.
See a big brownish beer. It's all seals. As we drive along the coast, we come to the Columbia River Maritime Museum. We're not going to be going in there to look at it, but it has one of the pilot boats that guide ships through the Columbia River Bar. Astoria is a rather large town and has a large downtown area. We're going to drive through it and look around there some. We next come to the jail. Now it's the Oregon Film Museum, but this is where the opening scenes were filmed right here. Next we drive to where Mouth lived, right here, in this brown building with the white car out front. Now we head up to look at the Astoria Column. As we park there, we see the Astoria Meager Bridge to Washington. Washington's over there on the other side of the Columbia River Sound. The Astoria Column is found on Coxcomb Hill. It was built in 1926 at the cost of $27,000. But it cost over $1 million a few years ago to renovate it. It has scenes on it from native times all the way up until Oregon becomes a state, and it's 125 feet tall. You can climb the 164 steps inside to the very top if you want to. Over there in the distance, that's Mount St. Helens that blew its top a few years ago. Now it's time to head out to get something to eat and to get a little shopping done in Walmart. Along the way, a herd of elk catch our attention, mainly females, but there are some males out there also. We go get the things we need at Walmart, and then we go to Panda Express and get some supper and take it back to the hotel with us. Our hotel is located on the riverfront and is Comfort Suites Columbia River. As we get checked in, we've been hearing a whole lot of noise. And back is a harbor, and on that pier are hundreds of sea lions. You can hear them now as we have our window open. And this brings us to the end of day 15.